Hey, another long day, huh? Don't worry, I've got a story for you tonight. Sometimes I think there are certain stories that only make sense when they're told in the dark, in silence, almost like a whisper. When everyone's fast asleep, the city lights have faded. It's just you and the story, alone together. And right now, we're following a story just like that. Strange, mysterious, maybe even a little unsettling. We're about to follow the trail of a molecule, a tiny chemical structure. But this little thing changed an entire world. Its name's a bit tricky, hard to pronounce. Lysergic acid diethylamide. But you can just call it LSD. This tiny thing, you wouldn't believe the things it set in motion, how it pushed the limits of the human mind, how it shaped society, art, science. If you knew, you'd be amazed. All right then, let's take it slow, one step at a time, and dive into this strange, long journey. The story begins in Switzerland, in the city of Basel. Inside this old, somewhat run-down laboratory, the research lab of a pharmaceutical company called Sandoz. It was around 1938, I think. Not entirely sure, but sometime in those years. There's a young chemist, Albert Hoffman. Quiet, introverted, someone who wouldn't really stand out at first glance. But actually, his mind wasn't confused at all. Quite the opposite, incredibly curious, investigative, constantly filled with new questions. He was working with a fungus called ergot. Not sure if you've heard of it. It grows on rye and other grains. Back in the Middle Ages, people who got poisoned by this fungus showed strange behaviors. Some even experienced hallucinations. It had been used for some purposes before, like easing childbirth pains, but Hoffman was more interested in the intriguing, potentially powerful chemical components inside the fungus. He wanted to isolate them, study their medical benefits. So there he was, in that quiet, dim corner of the lab. Among countless test tubes, Erlenmeyers, odd instruments, and complex setups, synthesizing a molecule called LSD-25, lysergic acid diethylamide's 25th derivative. At first, it didn't seem like a big deal. After synthesizing it, they tested it, tried it on animals, observed. Maybe some thought, not very interesting, or it didn't show the effects we expected. Hoffman himself didn't pay much attention at that point. He had other more exciting projects after all. Drug research is a long, patient process. But sometimes, some things in life just don't get forgotten, don't get shelved away. Fate makes sure they come back to you. 5 whole years pass. It's the spring of 1943. World War II is raging with full force. Maybe the air felt different that day. Maybe the stars were aligning differently. Who knows? Hoffman finds himself looking again at those old LSD-25 notes. He's not quite sure why. Maybe there was a feeling inside him, a voice whispering, "There's something here. This molecule holds a hidden potential." Maybe he thought something was overlooked in those tests done years ago. He starts experimenting again in the lab, synthesizing once more, trying different concentrations. And then at that moment, something unexpected happens. That strange dizziness takes hold. His vision darkens. Everything around him blurs. There's a weird unease, a creeping nervousness. No, this isn't good, he thinks to himself, and immediately decides to leave the lab, head straight home. Back then, there were no cars. Public transport wasn't well developed. He hops on his bicycle and starts pedaling. Probably one of the most unusual, most legendary bike rides in history. When he got home, he quickly drew the curtains, darkened the room, and laid down on his bed. And in that moment, as he closed his eyes, it was as if the doors to an entirely different world swung wide open. Incredible colors, shapes and patterns he had never seen before. Like an endless flow, a swirling vortex. More real than a dream, more vivid, more intense. The sense of time vanished, the perception of space shifted. It lasted for hours. Then slowly, that strange state began to fade. The effects diminished. Exhausted, Hoffman got up from his bed, pondering. What just happened? What did I just experience? And then it hit him. That day in the lab, somehow, a tiny amount of LSD must have entered his body. Maybe it got on his finger. Maybe he inhaled it. That curiosity, that endless scientific curiosity, it nudged him again. It pushed him forward. I need to try this, deliberately, in a controlled way, he told himself. And on April 19th, 1943, that famous bicycle day, that's when he conducted the controlled experiment on himself. 250 micrograms. A very small amount, really. But that tiny amount was enough to open a huge door. And so, this strange, extraordinary story that started quietly in a lab corner set off on an incredible, unexpected journey deep into the depths of the human mind. Hoffman's strange, hallucinogenic bicycle ride, in reality, was not just his personal experience. It marked the beginning of a discovery that would deeply affect and transform an entire scientific field, psychiatry. Within the walls of that quiet, modest lab in Switzerland, the mysterious molecule painstakingly extracted from ergot fungus suddenly found itself in a completely unexpected arena, the intricate, often unsolvable labyrinths of the human mind. The 1950s, the world was still trying to heal the deep wounds left by World War II, searching for ways to treat trauma. On one hand, the Cold War's tension and the shadow of nuclear threat cast fear across humanity. On the other, science, technology, and medicine brimmed with new hopes and potential solutions. Scientists worked tirelessly day and night to find remedies for both physical and psychological afflictions. New drugs, new treatment methods emerged. Amidst this hopeful yet tense atmosphere, LSD's potential began to be whispered. Some psychiatrists and neurologists recognized its unusual effects. They asked themselves, could this molecule be the key to unlocking hidden doors in the human mind? Could it allow access to the subconscious, dark chambers where suppressed emotions, buried traumas, and forgotten memories lurk? Early LSD research was a bold frontier, driven by scientific curiosity, but also laden with ethical concerns, uncertainty, and risk. Doctors experimented with LSD in treating various psychiatric disorders, most prominently within a method known as psycholytic therapy. The goal? Temporarily weaken the conscious mind's defenses so that patients could more easily access their subconscious, repressed emotions, and forgotten memories, and confront their traumas, process them, and ultimately heal. This approach was akin to a kind of mental archaeological dig. Deep within the mind's layers lay hidden traumas, suppressed anger, pain, guilt, forgotten childhood memories, all shelved in dusty, dark chambers. LSD functioned as a special brush, a delicate shovel, a detailed map, and a powerful flashlight, illuminating the mind's darkest corners, revealing hidden signs of trauma, and helping those buried wounds surface. At that time, LSD was not just being studied for psychiatric illnesses like schizophrenia or depression, It also held great promise for fighting alcoholism and substance addiction, which were becoming pervasive social problems. Addiction was understood not just as an individual affliction, but as a disease that devastated families and society. Some pioneering studies indicated that LSD could help patients struggling with alcohol or other addictions gain deeper insight into themselves, to uncover underlying traumas and suppressed emotions fueling their habits, and escape from destructive cycles. LSD was seen as a new beacon of hope in the battle against addiction. It seemed LSD offered a way out of deep despair, a path to redemption, guiding lost, hopeless selves toward rediscovery, healing, and the building of a healthier, more meaningful future, a door cracking open to a fresher beginning. But, of course, in real life, scientific studies and therapeutic processes are never this simple, perfect, or guaranteed. LSD is a profoundly powerful, complex, and unpredictable molecule. Its effects can vary dramatically in intensity and duration across individuals. For some patients, LSD provided deep insight, helped resolve trauma, triggered personal transformation, life-changing experiences. But for others, it led to total loss of control, disconnection from reality, terror, paranoia, nightmarish bad trips. LSD was always a double-edged sword. To truly understand its benefits and risks, and to determine which patients might safely use it, rigorous, controlled, long-term scientific research was essential. But history, public perception, and political decisions took LSD's story in a radically different, darker direction.
The 1960s. The world is literally caught in a whirlwind of change and transformation. Anti-war protests, especially the global outrage against the U.S. involvement in Vietnam, the peace movement opposing nuclear arms, civil rights marches, fierce struggles against all forms of discrimination, women's equality movements, demands for sexual freedom, the rise of environmental consciousness, everything is tangled together, inseparable. People from all walks of life, especially the younger generation, are challenging the values, authoritarian rules, and imposed lifestyles of their parents and ancestors. They dream of a brand new, freer, more egalitarian, more peaceful world. Rebellion against the status quo, defiance of the system, questioning traditions. It's everywhere. In music, art, literature, politics, everything is being questioned and redefined. And amidst this complex, turbulent, exhilarating, and hopeful period, LSD finds its own natural course, its own path. But this time, it moves away from sterile, cold, formal laboratories and clinics, slipping beyond the tight control of scientists and doctors, stepping into a completely different world, a freer, more spontaneous atmosphere, right into the heart of the counterculture, alternative movements, and underground scenes. And at this moment, one of the most influential, controversial, and magnetic figures of this movement steps onto the stage. Timothy Leary, a psychology professor at Harvard University, charismatic, intellectual, visionary, Leary is among the first to experiment with LSD. The profound, extraordinary experience changes his life completely. Leary passionately believes LSD is not merely a drug, but a powerful transformative tool capable of expanding consciousness, heightening awareness, sparking creativity, cultivating insight, and accelerating personal transformation. He sees LSD as a key that unlocks the doors of the mind, granting access to new realities. With unwavering determination, he dedicates himself to spreading LSD's potential, urging people to awaken their minds. He coins his famous, iconic slogan, "Turn on, tune in, drop out." Loosely translated, open yourself up, free your mind, connect to the world on a new frequency, and step outside the system. Or, more simply, awaken your awareness, listen to your inner voice, and follow your heart. This provocative, unforgettable slogan quickly becomes the motto, the manifesto of the entire counterculture and alternative movements. Young people heed the call, embarking eagerly on journeys toward new experiences, new levels of consciousness, all made possible by LSD. LSD quickly extends beyond individual experiences and personal enlightenment quests. Soon it leaves a deep, lasting imprint on music, art, literature, cinema, and fashion. The music world in particular is profoundly influenced by the new perceptions, new inspirations, new states of consciousness LSD unlocks. It's practically reborn. Legendary, groundbreaking artists like Jimi Hendrix, the Beatles, Pink Floyd, The Doors, and Jefferson Airplane draw inspiration from LSD, creating sounds, melodies, rhythms, harmonies never heard before, beyond imagination. New genres emerge: psychedelic rock, psychedelic pop, psychedelic folk. Music becomes a tool for entering trance states, a vehicle for expanding consciousness, a journey beyond the boundaries of ordinary reality. The art world undergoes a similar transformative awakening. Surrealist artists like Salvador Dali, already known for dreamlike, otherworldly works, draw even more heavily from LSD's hallucinatory visuals, subconscious imagery, and altered states of perception. Pop art icons like Andy Warhol embrace LSD's influence, using bolder colors, experimental techniques, unconventional materials. Art transforms into a dream realm, a subconscious journey, a portal beyond reality. But of course, every bright light casts a shadow. Every rise has its darkness. Alongside LSD's growing popularity and integration into mainstream culture, negative experiences, so-called bad trips, begin to rise. Bad trips entail intense loss of control, overwhelming fear, panic attacks, paranoia, detachment from reality, hallucinations spiraling beyond control. Vulnerable individuals, those with psychological conditions, or people using LSD improperly in unsafe environments or dosages often struggle to cope with the profound disorienting effects. This creates serious problems, not only for individuals, but for families and society at large. Mental health crises surge, emergency rooms overflow with LSD-related incidents. And from this critical turning point, LSD's story veers down a much darker path. Scientific research, clinical studies, and promising projects are abruptly halted. Governments, international organizations, and public pressure intervene. LSD is classified as an illegal substance. The bans begin. Penalties escalate. Production, sale, and use of LSD become criminal offenses. Once hailed as a promising medicine and tool for expanding consciousness, LSD is now demonized as a dangerous drug, a grave societal threat. LSD is pushed underground, produced in secret labs, sold on the black market. Usage becomes unregulated, uncontrolled, magnifying the risks. What was once a symbol of freedom and enlightenment is now synonymous with repression, prohibition, and danger.
The 1970s, the winds begin to shift. The songs of freedom of a bygone era give way to a growing sense of anxiety and uncertainty. The colorful dreams of the counterculture begin to fade, and bright idealism turns into bitter disappointment. LSD is no longer seen as a beacon of hope, but as a growing danger, a societal threat. The fear-mongering promoted by the media, the harsh and relentless policies enacted by governments, and the increasing pressure from public opinion, everything works against LSD and its potential. Prohibitions come, scientific research, clinical trials, projects that investigate potential benefits are disrupted one after the other, shelved or canceled. The molecule that once promised so much, that held so much future potential, is rapidly swept away from bright and promising days toward a dark and uncertain future. But how much validity was there in this blanket prohibition decision? Of course, LSD's potential risks, unpredictable and dangerous side effects, potential for abuse, and the possibility of misuse could not be ignored. Uncontrolled use, ill-advised experiences, and bad trips, these were real and serious problems. LSD can be quite risky, leading to lasting damage, especially for individuals with mental health issues, sensitive constitutions, and psychological vulnerabilities. However, this wholesale, unquestioned prohibition decision completely cut off scientific research, preventing the investigation of potential benefits, the development of safer usage methods, the reduction of risks, the treatment of side effects, and the prevention of addiction. Furthermore, it pushed LSD into the underground world, into the hands of ruthless criminal organizations, making it even more dangerous, even more uncontrolled, and even more unpredictable. Perhaps a different, more balanced, more rational approach, more conscious and comprehensive education, a controlled and supervised usage policy that minimizes risks and maximizes potential benefits, or harm reduction strategies could have been pursued. But history often bears witness to extreme all-or-nothing decisions in such complex, multifaceted matters. Following the Prohibition decision, LSD continues to live, to exist like a shadow, in the underground culture, in dark and illegal environments, at secret parties, in degenerate clubs, at illegal organizations, and in the hands of drug dealers. But now that old innocence, that pure search for freedom, that curiosity to explore the subconscious, that excitement to push the boundaries of the mind has completely disappeared. It's replaced by risk, danger, violence, abuse, uncertainty, mistrust, and the fear of death. While LSD was once seen as a promising means of escape, a symbol of rebellion, and a method for expanding consciousness, it is now increasingly associated and identified with addiction, crime, violence, mental illness, and death. But it should not be forgotten that the complex story of LSD is not just about prohibitions, dangers, negativity, addiction, crime, and death. It also symbolizes the spirit of an era, the dreams of a generation, the desire to pursue an ideal, the longing for a better world, and the effort to discover humanity's potential. Perhaps with the prohibition of LSD, that search for freedom, that desire to transcend boundaries, that curiosity to explore the subconscious, and that dream of reaching a higher level of consciousness was also somewhat disrupted, suppressed, and forgotten. Perhaps humanity missed the opportunity to delve into the depths of its mind, to unravel the secrets of the universe, and to better understand itself and the world. The story doesn't end in the darkness of prohibition. Like a seed buried deep within the earth, the potential of LSD lies dormant, waiting for the right conditions to sprout anew. Decades pass, and a new generation of scientists, driven by a thirst for knowledge and a desire to heal, begin to revisit the controversial molecule. They look beyond the stigma and fear, focusing instead on its untapped potential. Modern research is characterized by a rigorous and methodical approach, adhering to strict ethical guidelines and employing cutting-edge neuroimaging techniques. Scientists are exploring the effects of LSD on the brain with unprecedented precision, mapping the neural pathways that are activated and deactivated during the psychedelic experience. They're discovering that LSD can temporarily alter the brain's default mode network, which is associated with self-referential thought and ego boundaries. This alteration may explain the sense of ego dissolution and interconnectedness that is often reported by LSD users. The most promising area of modern LSD research is its potential as an adjunct to psychotherapy. Studies are showing that LSD-assisted therapy can be effective in treating a range of mental health conditions, including post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, anxiety, depression, and addiction. In this therapeutic setting, LSD is administered in a controlled and supportive environment, with trained therapists guiding the patient through their psychedelic experience. The LSD can help patients to confront and process traumatic memories, gain new insights into their lives, and break free from negative thought patterns. While the potential benefits of LSD-assisted therapy are undeniable, it's crucial to acknowledge both potential risks and ethical considerations given LSD's capacity to induce profound psychological experiences. It is not suitable for everyone, and it should only be administered under the supervision of trained professionals. Furthermore, there are important ethical questions to consider regarding informed consent, patient safety, and the potential for misuse. The world won't change overnight, but if you sleep with new thoughts, maybe you will. Sleep well, dream freely, and I'll be here next time.